All right. You guys having fun? Still engaged? Awesome. Good stuff. I was about a year and a half out of college, had started an organization with one of my friends. There were 4 of us together that had launched this venture. We were excited, we were passionate, and then the conflict started to happen, where we didn't really get along as well as we used to, and we were realizing some organizational gaps we had. And that was the first time that I was introduced to a DISC profile. Had a mentor named Ike Reichard who had gone through a Train the Trainer with Judy Suter. And he said, let me try this with you. I think this will help you with your team. And I remember him sending us an assessment and us taking it for the first time. And man, there is nothing I like to read about more than myself. So it made me really excited. I would dive in, and I remember being I'm an ID, so I remember reading the things that went along with a high D, and even the negative things I loved, because it made me, you kind of impulsive. Yes, I am impulsive. Like everything was a point of pride. And then I remember him sitting down with our team and facilitating a conversation, and him bringing to life what it really looked like, what our strengths were, where our weaknesses were. And I remember him using a narrative that changed the way that I looked at things. He explained a story, and he used the Challenger space shuttle launch as a backdrop for it. And he explained how when NASA is launching a space shuttle, there are 2 major entities involved in the shuttle launch. The first is the NASA scientists, the people behind NASA, typically very high Cs. But on the launch of a space shuttle, the military actually controls the launch. Tends to be very high Ds. And he explained the story to me of reading through the congressional testimony afterwards, and really I won't go into all the details, but explaining how on the day of the launch, the high Ds overpowered the high Cs, and it led to the loss of life of 7 people. And for the first time, I was able to see not only my strengths, but how my strengths overplayed, or how my strengths, without the right people around me or without the right appreciation for others, could lead to things that were not always positive. And then he challenged our team. He said, if you don't get some people on your team with some different strengths, you guys are going to be doing prison ministry from the inside. That's what he said. And he said it's not because of malice or ill will, but because you will not have the right skill set to ask the right questions to make your organization what you need it to be. Here's my question for you. When did this come to life for the first time? I want you to think back. For some of you, it was recently. For some of you, it was a long time ago. When was the first time that you understood the things that drive you? When was the first time? Maybe it was the first time that you offered this solution to a group of people and you saw it transform their organization or their leadership team. When was that for you? The second question I'd ask you to think about is, when you remember that, why are you still doing what you're doing? Why are you still in the business that you're in? I'd even ask, why did you come here to this conference? I heard some amazing insights when I asked that question. I asked Philip today at lunch why he's here, and he said that he's here because this conference each year reminds him of his why. It reminds him why. When he hears an opening like last night, and he sees a room give a standing ovation to a long-time, really family member who stood by his wife in her final days, he said, that reminds me of the caliber of the people in this room and what this organization is all about. Some of you came to get the next big business idea. Some people said, I came to get the $10,000 idea, the next one. So I don't know why you're here, but I think every single one of us have hopefully gained something that will change the way that we do business, the way that we interact, the way that we work with people when we go back home. Yesterday, as we talked about reimagining excellence, we talked about it in the concept of exchanges, that if we're going to reimagine excellence, it's going to require us to give up some good things to get some better things. We talked about exchanging stability for significance, exchanging expedience for excellence, exchanging the immediate for the ultimate. And as we kind of try to tie a bow around an incredible couple of days of learning, of connection, I want to offer 3 more things today. And it's different than honestly what I anticipated sharing with you. Because I thought I would go and spend time on 2 or 3 more exchanges. But through the conversations that I've had over the last couple days, there's just some things that have bubbled to the surface. That I know if certain people are dealing with these, I think they have broader applications. So I want to talk to us as we close about changing our perspective, exchanging our perspective on 3 topics that I think would be instrumental for every single one of us in our organizations. They're 3 of the greatest lessons I've learned over the last year. The first one is this. Now I want to talk about what it looks like to exchange our perspective on growth. How do we change our perspective on what growth looks like? A few years ago, I was challenged by somebody to try to read a chapter of Proverbs every single day. And I did that for a couple of months. And as I would do it, on the first of the month, read chapter 1, and you kind of get some stuff that's really good, and then you get some other stuff that I don't really understand. It kind of just goes over my head. And there was a verse that I'd read a few times that never really meant a whole lot to me until I married my wife, who is from South Georgia, and it began to appear in a different light. The verse is Proverbs 14:4. Now, for those of you that are getting nervous, I'm not going to preach and I'm not going to pass an offering plate, so don't get too nervous. Proverbs 14:4, it says this. It says, "Where there are no oxen, the stable is clean. But with the strength of the oxen comes the increase of the harvest." Where there are no oxen, the stable is clean, but with the strength of the oxen comes the increase of the harvest. Read it a few times, didn't mean anything to me. Spent some time on a farm, and I began to understand that in those verses, there's a picture of 2 farms. The first farm, there are no oxen, there are no animals, and because there are no oxen, the stable is clean. Let me translate it for you. There are no animals, which means there's no crap that's got to be cleaned up. I mean, that's what it means. That's the Kevin version. And then the second part paints a picture of another farm, and it says, "With the strength of the oxen comes the increase of the harvest." So it's telling us on this farm there are oxen, and because there are oxen, there is a lot of harvest that's coming. There's positive things that are happening. What it doesn't tell us, but it implies, is there are some crap that's got to be dealt with on that farm. How many of you, that's your business in this stage? You started it. Maybe the revenues weren't where you wanted them to be. The opportunities weren't there. But if you're honest, there wasn't a lot of junk that had to be dealt with other than just trying to pay the bills each month. But now some opportunity has come. Maybe you're adding to your team, you're getting more clients, there are more solutions that TTI is offering, and there's more opportunity. And with this increased opportunity, with the increased potential for impact, has come some junk that you got to deal with to clean up. It's the phase of business we're in. My business partner and I, when we were just starting, we had so much fun, but we weren't really making incredible impact. Over the last few years, we've added a team. We have 12 full-time people. We're working with Chick-fil-A and Coca-Cola and Auburn University, and we're impacting 30,000 leaders right now a year, but there's some junk that we've got to deal with on the way. Here's what I want to challenge you. Will you change your perspective on growth? The next time that you've got some crap that's got to be cleaned up, if I can say that, will you stop looking at it as a negative and say, the reason I have the opportunity to deal with this is because there's growth that's coming and there's impact that I can make, and this is a side effect of the opportunity I have. When we change our perspective on growth, we realize there's going to be some junk on the journey, but the junk that we deal with is the side effect of the growth that we have. So as you leave this event, I want you to think about how you change your perspective on growth. The second thing I want you to think about is how you change your perspective on your instincts. Now, is Trisha still here? So yesterday I walked off this stage and I sat at this table for a little while. And when we finished a morning session and took a break, I had a conversation with Trisha, and she was talking about this concept of intuition, something she's been studying and looking at. And it reminded me of the importance of the VAA, of the value-added associate. That name is not a mistake. It's not just a way to put a positive spin on it. It's a belief that TTI has that the insights and the solutions are incredible, but the reason they come to life is because of the value-added associates. Last year, I was in a meeting with our largest client, which is Chick-fil-A. And when we first started, we sold them a vision. We had no real way to implement it. We sold them this vision. We were so excited. But as we have grown, we've begun to have some incredible data. And the visuals have become better. We've had all of these things that have improved. And so last year I was so excited. We sat with the vice president of marketing and we laid out for him all of these incredible analytics on how our system was performing, how we were going to increase it, and what the predictive analytics were for the next 3 years. And I was so excited. I was impressed with myself, and I just knew that he was going to be impressed with us. And I remember him taking my laptop and flipping the top of it down and looking me in the eye, and he said this. He said, "Kevin, these insights are great. I can tell you guys have come a long way. I want you to always remember, we didn't hire you just for your insights. We hired you for your instincts." And that's really cool because it tells us where we're going if we don't change things. But I want you to know we hired you because I want you to tell us how we can change things to get to where we need to be. Insights are incredible. They're so valuable, but it's coupled with your instincts, your abilities as a business owner, what you can add value to that really create solutions that change the world. Insights tell us what people want. The instincts help us get them to where they need to go. The insights tell us what's going to happen if we don't change things. The instincts help them point the way to where they want to go. Insights are so valuable, but the insights coupled with instincts lead to innovations that flat out change the world. And your job as a VAA is to take these incredible solutions and then put them in people's hands and then give them the tools that they need to make it real in their organization and make things move in a positive direction. Insights coupled with instincts lead to innovation that changes the world. Changing your perspective, not just on the tools, but on the instincts and the value you add. So changing your perspective on growth, changing your perspective on instincts. And lastly, I want to just challenge you. I think in this room, this feels a little weird to say, but I want to ask you to change your perspective on people. Because I just wonder as we get a little bit older, as we get a little bit further in the business, if sometimes we become just a little bit jaded. We got into it because we're passionate about changing people's lives, but then it really becomes about getting another assessment, getting another solution, trying to get another client, and we forget that these tools have real impacts that change people's lives. I was with a police officer in Atlanta that works in a really tough area of inner city Atlanta, unbelievable crime, a lot of poverty. And I made this comment to him. I said, "Man, I bet you work with some rough people, but you have to deal with some rough people." And I will never forget what he said to me. He said, "You know, Kevin, most of the time, I deal with really good people on their worst day. Most of the time, I deal with really good people on their worst day." And I felt about this big. Because Zig Ziglar used to say, the way you see people is the way you treat them. And if we will see people in the light that puts them in the best light, we will be able to use these tools, these solutions, these assessments, and the instincts we have to help take them to a better place. And it really is ultimately about the relationships. It's about helping people realize their potential in life. Last night was moving for me for that award ceremony, to hear a gentleman stand on the stage and pour out his heart. And it reminded me of my business partner. I hope you come back with some tools that help your business. I hope you come back with some strategies, but maybe the whole reason that you're in Scottsdale, Arizona at this event is because you just need to hear that in the midst of all the things of growing your business, that maybe you just need to focus on some people or some relationships, and maybe those relationships are not even in your business, they're at your home. And I would hate for you to have a thriving, growing business and mess up the most important part of your life. Some of you are saying, thank you. Some of you, that makes you uncomfortable because you say, let's stick to the business side of it. But I watched my business partner is one of the most incredible people in the world. He was a student body president at the University of Georgia. He did investment banking in Hong Kong. By the time he was 25, he had been to all 7 continents. When he was in Antarctica, he only wore a tuxedo so he would blend in with the penguins. Kind of crazy guy, too. My business partner, Garrett, he's incredible. A few years ago, he was voted one of the 10 outstanding young people of the world. You go in his room and you go to his office and you see these awards and you see these trophies and you see the recognition. And it really was something that meant a lot to him. And I remember 3 years ago when he got the phone call that his dad had stage 4 colon cancer and less than a year to live. And I remember a guy that had a lot of awards and a lot of recognition that didn't care a lot about that at that time. What mattered to him in that next season was spending time with the person who had invested in him his entire life. And I really do hope that you're exchanging stability for significance and expedience for excellence, but maybe one of the things that you need to go back and do is exchange fans for friends. You need to exchange the extra networking opportunity for an extra night at home with the people who are actually going to care about you the most when it's all said and done. I think it's the most important exchange that you'll ever make. So I want you to change your perspective on growth, on instincts, and on people. Here's what I want to ask you to do as we kind of come to an end of this session. Take out a pen and paper. Most of you have it. And I want to ask you to think about what you're going to take away from this conference and what you're going to apply. What are the things? Be thinking about what are the things, not the 10 things, but what are the 1 thing or the 2 things or the 3 things you're going to do when you go back? We have been talking this entire time about reimagining excellence. Somebody asked me this question. They said, when you think of excellence, a lot of people have said, what does that mean to you? Here is one of the things it means to me. I heard an interview a number of years ago of the baseball player George Brett. Anybody remember George Brett, the great Kansas City Royal? There we go. Some Royals fans in here. George Brett was one of the greatest baseball players of the last 30 years. Incredible guy. They interviewed George Brett during his last baseball season, and they asked him this. If you could write a fairy tale ending to your baseball career, how would you like your last play in baseball to go? You know what everybody thought. Bottom of the 9th, bases loaded, grand slam, win the World Series, something exciting, something with a flair for the dramatics. And he surprised everybody because this was his answer. He said, I'd like my last play in baseball to go something like this. They pitch it to me. I hit a slow, routine grounder to second base. The second baseman fields it cleanly, and he throws me out at first. But when he throws me out, I am running as hard as I can toward the bag because I wanted to always be said that I gave my best and I tried my hardest, and up until the very end, I left it all on the field. It is really easy to be excellent in the big moments. but how are you reimagining excellence in the mundane moments of your organization, of your business, and of what you're trying to build? So here's the question. Write it down. Write down your answers. What's 1, 2, or 3 things that you're going to do when you leave here? What's 1, 2, or 3 things? What's something you learned in a breakout session? What's something you heard from the main stage that you're going to implement? I'm going to give you a couple seconds to think about it. What's something you're going to take from here and actually apply when you get home? As you're thinking about those, as you're writing them down, the second question I'd ask you, what's the timeline to do it? You don't put a deadline on it. It's really easy to say, I'm going to do it. But when's it going to happen by? What are you going to do? What's the timeline? The third question, who's going to hold you accountable? Some of you have a team. Some of you, it's a spouse. Some of you, this is a solo deal and you need to find somebody, maybe it's somebody even at TTI that's going to hold you accountable to the goal you set that you're going to do when you get back. What are you going to do? What's your timeline? Who's going to hold you accountable? The last thing is, what's your first step? What's that first step you're going to take toward making that happen? I know there's not a lot of time to do that right now, and this is my challenge for you. If you didn't have time to finish that right now, when Dave gets off stage and this ends, and as you go back to prepare for dinner, I would challenge you to go to your room, go spend a few minutes alone and figure that out. If you came here and you just made a couple new friends, that's awesome. If you came here and you learned some new things, that's great, but I want to know what you're going to do differently when you go back because of it. Can I get a volunteer? Some volunteer right here. All right, right here. Come on up. Go for it. Just want you to verify this isn't rigged, okay? That's empty, right?
That's empty.
Okay, good stuff. There's some water in there.
There's
okay,
water in there.
Okay, good stuff. What's your name?
Shari.
Shari. Everybody give Shari a round of applause. She else. So, I heard a story one time about when life was simpler and things cost a lot less, about a little boy who walks into an ice cream shop, or really a cafe, and he sits down and the waitress comes over and she asks him what he wants. And he's kind of thinking about it, and he said, well, how much is an ice cream sundae? And she said, it's 50 cents. And he pulls out his coins, he studies them, he's counting them. And at this point, there's other customers coming in. She realizes this isn't going to be a big sale. She needs to move on, got to turn the table. And so she's getting a little frustrated, and he kind of hangs his head down. And he said, well, how much is just a plain dish of ice cream? And she said, it's 35 cents. And he counts his coins again, and she's kind of getting frustrated, and he said, all right, I'll just have the plain dish of ice cream. She goes over, she grabs the ice cream, she brings it back, she sits it down, flips the bill over, walks away, doesn't think anything else about it. He eats his ice cream, goes up, pays the bill, and when the waitress comes back to clean the table, she looks, and she kind of had tears running down her face because sitting beside the empty ice cream dish were 2 nickels and 5 pennies. See, the little boy had enough to get the ice cream sundae, but if he would have gotten it, he wouldn't have had enough money to leave a tip. And that reminds me in life to always give more than other people expect. You know, this is how most people treat their life. So this is water in here, and most people show up and they try to sparse out. They have a scarcity mentality, and so they say, you know what, I want to give just a little bit in this area, and I want to hold the rest back. You know, I've got my business and I got a lot of things going on outside of it, so I'm going to pour a little bit into that right now. But then I've got other things going on. I'm involved in this professional association. I serve on the board there. I'm going to give just a little bit in there. You know, I got to leave a little bit for my family because they're kind of important. So that's tonight I'm going to give this a little bit there. And in each instance, they're trying to reserve enough so that they have enough to go around. That's how most people operate in this world. But have you ever met somebody that operated differently? I've met somebody, and when they show up, they don't give just a little bit. But they just say, you know what, I'm going to go all in. And they give everything they have. I like it. And those people are exciting, they're inspiring, but sometimes they're annoying because you're like, how do you have so much energy all the time? What's the deal? Because they're pouring, you're like, it's just a good day for them. And then you see them in the next interaction, and there they are, and they're giving what they have, and they're going all in, and you're like, man, it's just, this person is a workaholic. It's when it comes to work, man, they are there, and they're pouring it all in there, and you're like, that's just, they don't have a life outside of here. And what's so amazing is that same person you see who's gone all in, who's committed, who's fully invested, and then you see them for the next time. Maybe it's at a grandkids event on a Saturday or a t-ball field with your kids, and there they are. Just going all in.
All in.
And it really is. It's amazing because you're like, what's the deal with these people? And then they show up, and they're the ones that it's summertime, and it's vacation Bible school at the church, and there they are again, just going all in. You know what's sad? They won't remember any of these exchanges, but they'll remember this magic trick right here. It's really sad. But it's the same people that you see every single time, and they're not just giving a little bit, but every time you see them, they're taking what they have, and they're going all in. It's not connected to anything, is it? No?
No, and I'm surprised.
Okay.
I thought there would have been not enough in there for all of them.
I know. It's pretty amazing. So we keep doing this, but we're almost out of time. Will you give her a round of applause? Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate your help. It's amazing when people decide to commit, they're going to go all in. It really is. And you know what? And we could do this all day if we had time, but here's the trick. I'm going to actually tell you how it works. And I know with a group of people like this that train a lot, I should probably be selling these afterwards because I do real well. Yeah. Here's the deal. It's actually not a magic trick. It works as one, but it doesn't just happen. This thing is designed this way. This pot actually has a container in the middle that has water coming in. It has a little hole on the side here. And when I cover my finger over that hole, it allows whatever water is in the inner chamber to come out, but all the water in the outside chamber to stay in. And when I remove my finger from that hole, it allows the water from the outside to refill from the inside. And so it's actually not a magic trick. The pot is actually designed that way. And the reason I tell you that is because I believe that's how you and I were designed. And you can call it what you want. You can call it karma. You can call it the law of reciprocity. I call it sowing and reaping. But I believe that when we pour and we give in to things that are valuable and worthy, we don't run out, but we have more. I believe that God created us in a way that we're refilled from within when that happens, and we have more to give. And so my challenge is maybe you're kind of tired. Maybe you've been doing this a long time. Maybe your business is at a stressful point right now, and there's a tendency to want to pull back. And my encouragement is that you've learned some incredible things. Will you take them home? Will you apply them? And will you decide one more time that you're going to be willing to go all in? That you're going to pour back into your business, you're going to pour back into your family, and you're going to invest in the things that matter. And I 100% believe that when you invest and you pour into those things, you won't have less, you'll have more. Not because it's some magic trick, but that's how we are created. It's how we were designed to be. And when we live into that, together with TTI, we will offer solutions that impact people's lives, that help them understand themselves better, that improve their relationships. And I believe that when we do that, we will contribute to things that actually change this world. And I am so incredibly impressed to meet some of the people in this room, and I'm inspired by what you do. I hope you'll be encouraged and go back and do it one more time. Thank you so much for being so attentive today. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.